Shall we start the program?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Go ahead, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you. Yeah. Dear friends, greetings from the BDU Heritage Center for Gerontology, Department of Social Work, Bharathidasan University, Tiruchirappalli, India, and Heritage Foundation, Hyderabad, Telangana, for this international webinar series on advocacy for leadership for aging. Advocacy in leadership for aging. We are going to have a two-part webinar series today and tomorrow, and we have the speaker for the day, Dr. Jan Hively, with us. At the outset, let me warmly welcome each and every one of you who have joined us for this webinar series from within India and from abroad, from different countries around the world. It gives us immense joy, and it makes us feel proud to have you all with us for this webinar series. I'm sure this webinar series on advocacy in leadership for positive aging is going to really be a very enlightening professional event in the field of aging, with very valuable inputs from the speakers, Dr. Jan Hively today, and Dr. Moira Allen tomorrow, and Dr. Rajiv Mehta also will be speaking tomorrow. So I extend to you all a very hearty welcome from the side of the organizers. As the coordinator of the Center for BDU Heritage Center for Gerontology, Department of Social Work, Bharathidasan University, I extend a hearty welcome to the speaker, Dr. Jan Hively, for this webinar. Welcome, ma'am. Before Jan starts her presentation, let me just record our sincere appreciation and thanks to our Honorable Vice Chancellor of Bharathidasan University, Professor P. Manishankar, and the Registrar, Professor G. Gopinath, and our Head of the Department, Dr. Mangaleshwaran, all my faculty colleagues in the Department of Social Work, and Dr. K.R. Gangadharan, Chairman, Heritage Foundation, Hyderabad, and his staff in Heritage Foundation. I would like to really, appreciate and thank each and every one of you for your cooperation and your support for this event. Now, let me just introduce the speaker of the day, Dr. Jan Hively. Just give me a second. Just allow me to share my screen.
Dr. Longo, I can just introduce myself. Should I just go ahead?
Dr. Ilango, Can she do it herself? Dr. Ilango? Dr. Ilango?
Kadu, are you ready for me to go ahead?
Dr. Mangaleshwaran, can we ask her to introduce and move on? Dr. Ilango is not responding.
Yes, sir. We'll wait. I think he has some connectivity problem issues, sir.
Yeah.
Can we wait for just a few minutes, just 1 minute, or I will ask him to just come back, sir. Yeah.
Okay.
There may be some bandwidth problem there. I'm happy to move ahead if you could just put my PowerPoint presentation up and I can introduce myself.
So, Dr. Mangaleshwaran, who's doing the PowerPoint? We are doing it, or Prabhakar, or one of your Prabhakar is presenting.
Okay, Prabhakar is doing, sir.
Yeah, Prabhakar is doing
Yeah,
it.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Hello.
Don't worry, Dr. Ilango, start. Dr. Ilango, start.
Great. I'm, is,
Internet connection. Yeah. Yeah.
so I'm going to go
So I
ahead.
just would like to, can I go ahead?
Okay, Dr. Ilango, she wanted to start it because it's getting late,
So
right?
today, okay, yeah. Can we go ahead with the talk, sir, or can I just introduce?
So, Dr. Ilango, start, Dr.
Dr. Jan,
Dr.
just
start.
I'll say you,
Please start, Dr. Ilango, please start.
and then I'll, yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. So Dr. Jan Hidley, today's speaker, 1 second.
May I go
Sir,
ahead now?
already screen is shared, sir. Ilango, sir, already the screen is been shared. Yeah.
Do all of you hear me? Can you put up your hand if you can hear me?
Uh,
I'm very much honored to be with you this evening. Evening your time, morning my time. And I am happy, particularly, to be here with Dr. Alongo, because Dr. Alongo has been collaborating with us and the Pass It On Network since we were formed 7 years ago as a representative in India. And thank you very much, Dr. Alongo, for making this presentation possible. And I do want to speak for my partner in forming the Pass It On Network, which is a global network of positive aging advocates. Moira Allen, you will be meeting her tomorrow. I want to, what I'm talking about today is very relevant here in these times of COVID-19. Because we are also facing climate change emergencies and economic recession. Is it possible to mute everything? If you can mute yourselves, please. In these days of COVID-19, climate change emergencies and economic recession, it's all too easy to see extended longevity as a problem. We focus on more vulnerability, more dependency, and more costly services to address expanding needs. Dr. Alonso, it would be best now if you could mute yourself, I think.
Yeah.
I hope to today present a kind of complementary research-based perspective that emphasizes the potential for positive productive aging, supported by age-friendly communities. I am speaking, of course. Dr. Alonso, could you mute yourself, please?
Yeah.
There's noise coming from somewhere. I'm not quite sure where. Oh, that's much better. Thank you. I'm going to start the presentation now. I wanted, however, to tell you that I'm from the United States. My perspective is going to be that of, although we've been working globally, that it is my perspective. And I have 3 questions for you to consider as you listen to this presentation. The first one is, what did I say that doesn't fit the situation and where you are, particularly in India? What's different? What do you want to say that doesn't work here? That's not true here. The second question I have is, what would you like to add to the section that I'm going to have on what's next? What would you like to see next in relation to positive productive aging? And my third question is, how has the process of aging been different from what you have experienced or what you expected as a young man or a young woman, as a young adult? How is it different? And I'm going to be talking to you about this from my perspective, because I had a full career until the age of 68 in the areas of city planning, schools district planning, and public administration. I was in Minnesota, deputy mayor in Minnesota, for example, city planning director, et cetera. But I had come to the age of 68. It was time for me to retire. I was then a senior fellow at the University of Minnesota. And I thought, what's next for me? Here we are. That was in the year 2000. And in that year, I heard a presentation. Next slide, please. The perception of the speaker, who is the head of our government in the state, said, aging is our next biggest problem. They were so concerned about the fact that the percentage of people in the population would be doubling those over the age of 62. They were so concerned because they were already struggling to meet the needs of the frail elderly people, particularly in rural communities from which the young people had gone to the cities, leaving those behind. In many communities, we had a majority of people who were over the age of 65. Traditional practices, however, do identify seniors as dependents. For example, we had a mandatory retirement age that employers would set. My late husband, for example, was forced to retire from being chair of the psychology department at our university because of the fact that he was 68, automatic retirement. And there was also fear of increasing longevity, therefore, because of the cost of pensions, the cost of medical care, and this rural-urban separation of the generations. Families could no longer live together. So next slide, please. My concern, next slide, please. My interest there was doing some survey research to find out what was actually going on, because after all, I was going into that period of being a senior and definitely being a retired senior, I thought then. So what I did was to get together people around the state and what I called seniors lead forums. You see, all of the judgments were being made by staff. They were being made by the social workers. They were being made by the aging services directors. And their job was to provide services to meet the needs of frail elderly people. But what about all the others of us who are strong and vital, thinking about what's next? What I found then in these seniors lead forums, where only the older adults were allowed to speak and the professionals sat around the perimeter listening, was that the older people said, what's most important to me? Self-determination, self-sufficiency, economic self-sufficiency, and community participation. And we all agree that ageism is a form of discrimination to be combated. The kind of ageism, unfortunately, that's connected right now with COVID-19 to, quote, vulnerability of older adults. But these values of self-determination, economic security, community participation, civic engagement, these values are the foundation for the group that I then founded, which is called the Vital Aging Network. It's still going. You can see the address there. Next slide, please. What I wanted to show was that the 20th century science I found in the background research that went with this study had addressed the physical problems of aging adults thanks to medical miracles, new technologies that assist. For example, in the city I came from, we were the first city in the country, thanks to my work as a city planner, to be totally accessible for handicapped people in our downtown. It was very fortunate because my husband, for example, who was on oxygen in a wheelchair, was able to go out each day with his caregiver and have lunch in another restaurant. That was feasible because it was these new technologies for curb cuts, for example, as simple as that. It was also from the change in attitude about aging. Because these terrible problems were becoming modifiable. In other words, we can do something about it. And of course, in the 20th century, we had excellent food, much improved food quality and safety. The results was that we had greater longevity. Longevity was extended by 50%. From the time that I was born in 1932 to the time that I am now, which is age 88. We have fewer disabilities in later life. And what I found in my surveys in rural communities for these people from ages 55 to 84 was that 75% of them said they were healthy and active into their 80s. Next slide, please. So discovery is not just finding new lands, it's seeing with different eyes. 20th century science had addressed the physical needs. 21st century research into the second half of life has shown us the capacity of the brain and brain development. It's shown us what matters most for longevity. It's shown us the importance of purpose and meaningful work, and it's shown us the dimensions of well-being, the potential for later life. Next slide, please. Let me go through these quickly. This little guy on the right, Gene Cohen, who unfortunately died in 2009, I see as one of the 3 or 4 great leaders in our country in relationship to making a difference in our attitudes about older adults. He was a psychiatrist. He was one of the founders of the National Institute on Aging. He did studies of the brain and he also looked at the health of older adults who were active in creative programs and others who were simply in the usual assisted living facility, for example, where they kind of were able to read and maybe talk to other people, but where there wasn't a similar kind of active engagement of the brain. Next slide, please. What he said was that positive brain changes happen because of aging, not in spite of it. He understood the capacity, it was essential, and this research has been blossoming that you'll be reading much more about through your studies of gerontology during this 21st century. But what he was finding was that we produce new brain cells right to the end, that just as we do new muscles right to the end. If we exercise, my sister began exercising, I kid you not, at the age of 92, and she is now 98, and she has developed muscles in that period. And she's very, very fine, thank you. Two sides of the brain were working together. What he found was that in midlife, actually beginning at the age of 40, that you tend to, where you previously were either left-brained or right-brained, you began having the movement of the two sides of the brain together. And you tended to see things more in a more complex manner. You tended to see, rather than yes or no, you tend to say, well, maybe not. That was the midlife period that he feels that he talks about. He also found that as we go into 55 to 75 period, it tends to be actually the most creative period of our life because we have more dendrites and internal connections being developed, even though other cells may be deteriorating. This stimulates the creativity that he feels should be actively fostered, whether we're talking about music or dance or theater or visual arts. It's active creative expression. And he found that we had more activity in the frontal lobes, which means more emotional intelligence. So basically, he understood how life experience interacts with brain changes to expand practical intelligence in later life. And he felt that the task was creative engagement, challenging the brain in a stimulating environment. Next slide, please. By the way, I just got a book yesterday. I'm going to be sending it to my sister because it's mind games. And I want to be sure that she always has another crossword puzzle to do. What matters the most for longevity? This is the second question on that list that I'd given you. This guy, Dan Buettner, I first knew when he was riding, he and his brother were riding their bicycles across Africa and filming their activities, which would then go into the classrooms of our schools throughout the state of Minnesota. He became interested in the fact that there are a lot more centenarians, for example, in Sardinia, than there are, for example, in New York City, percentage-wise. So he decided to put together a team, and he began a global study of centenarians in the 6 places in the world with the highest percentage of people over age 100. What was common to them? What mattered the most in relationship to their longevity? He found nutrition. The food that they ate tended to be more rice, more fish, less fat, and certainly fewer carbohydrates. Exercise, physical exercise, mental exercise, relationships, social interaction. He has a wonderful video that's available, I believe, on YouTube under Blue Zones. And it shows you a group on one of the islands in the Mediterranean. This is where, when you are born, you are automatically connected with all the others who are born in your same year, and you are expected to provide community for each other throughout life. This is the photograph, the video shows them at 102 years old. Every day at 5 p.m. throughout their lives, they've gotten together. And it's amazing the high percentage of people who have lived to see it. This next slide then shows another person who has contributed greatly to our understanding of what's needed for positive, productive aging. Mark Friedman, who was the founder of Civic Ventures, now called Encore.org. In other words, what I do after retirement is to have an encore career. In the 21st century, we will focus on finding work that matters. What he saw was the potential of productive aging. Older adults involved in meaningful work, whether it's paid or unpaid, are more healthy and more satisfied with life. Retirees engaged in productive activities are more satisfied with their retirement. So what we're saying is give me purpose. Maybe I need a paycheck, but the main thing is sense of purpose, productivity, meaningful work. What is it that gives us meaning? I've done asked a lot of people that question. And what we talk about as meaningful is what we tend to match up with our interests and our skills. We're doing it with others. We can show that we have successfully accomplished these tasks. There are a number of characteristics of what gives meaning for work. But then changes in the economy encourage and actually require paid work in later life. And this is where I am, and Moira and I have been doing workshops in lifelong learning and earning, learning for earning. We must have upskilling, constant upskilling for the changing demands of jobs. We've got to do away with the various barriers that keep us from working longer. Good work for retirees is very likely more flexible, part-time, and it fits with the demands of the economy. I think that you'll find that in India also. More people are working in their homes and remote employment, and that fits. Next slide, please. So putting it all together, beginning in 2007, a guy named Rick Moody, comes from a philosophy background, initiated the first positive aging conference. Moira and I met there. I want to just show you this one flower that I put together that shows how well-being and positive aging both include the same factors. What contributes to wellness? We have been talking since 1972, research that shows that what contributes to well-being. And in that case, it's you can see beginning intellectual, mental, social, physical. Let's begin at the bottom left. Physical, intellectual or mental, social, emotional, vocational, and spiritual. Those are the dimensions that any one of us should be exercising at all times. And we have the capacity to do that regardless of our present state of abilities. We can do some kind of exercise, physical exercise, some kind of mental exercise, enjoy social interaction, experience anger as well as pleasure, love, having vocational sense of purpose and spiritual. So each one of those matches up with what we call a dimension of positive aging as well. You can see those on the inside of the flower, but it's all the same thing, really. Next slide, please. So finally, another contributor, I think, who really has shifted the game in relationship to thinking about older adults is Dr. Bill Thomas, the founder of the Eden Alternative and several other projects. His point is he is a geriatrician who had worked in publicly owned nursing homes. And what he began here, because he was so depressed when he went into the place that he was working, by the people who are hanging their heads in their plates, was that he decided to improve their quality of life, the community. So he did that by bringing in plants and animals, children visiting, daily responsibilities, even if it was, okay, Mrs. McNeil, you're going to water the plants today. Companionship and self-determination to elders in nursing homes. In other words, I'm going to decide when I'm going to eat, and I can go to the refrigerator and get myself something to eat when I want it. He also began to improve the quality of care by training nursing home staff to deinstitutionalize by doing these various things that I described just before. So creating a life worth living in long-term care. He has moved from that to creating the Greenhouse Project, which is building medical health, combination of healthcare and social interaction in homes in neighborhoods, and now has a wonderful prefab home that can be lifted in from a truck and put down in a place looking over some water, for example, as all kinds of technical equipment so that people who are normally in wheelchairs and need to be cared for by others can actually live independently. Next slide, please. So the issue is what next? What next to build on the strengths of older adults so that they and their understanding about the importance of sharing those strengths as elders for themselves, advocating for themselves, advocating for their members of their families, their community, to have that kind of interaction. So I want to talk about that in two categories. One is education, and the other one is advocacy. Under education, let's talk about lifelong learning and earning. I think I've already mentioned that. We need to be able to reduce any barriers to employment and instead expand the capacity of our ability to find a job. Low cost upskilling and guidance to keep up with new work opportunities. Too often, I find older adults, they know that there are courses out there at our community college, but who is guiding them? Is there a guide for older adults that says, okay, these are the opportunities that might be available to you given your interests? If you were to take this course or that course, and it's probably being given now remote, and perhaps we should start with the digital literacy. We need to be sure that you have the full list of virtual work skills. We have courses for that, but we need to have the guidance so that people see the potential because they're not used to having those opportunities available. Lifelong learning about the route to healthy and productive aging. And this means gerontology education. So, what I want to be sure of is that gerontology is not a matter of for professionals to learn about older adults over there and talk to each other about that based on their experience with those older adults. We're talking about gerontology education that goes all the way, beginning from young people. We should be talking with experiential learning, for example, and intergenerational programs, for which Moira and I have a long list of potential for you, so that young people and old people are together, often bringing into the long-term care facility, daycare centers, for example, so that will happen naturally. And we need to include employers in that so that they will understand that the quality of experience that people have and their actual upgrade in brain power in relationship to things that require some sense of contemplation make good good possibilities for employment. The second category there is advocacy. And I'm going to show you next, sorry, we have someone else here. Prada, can you put that up in the full screen? I don't have it on my full screen now. Uh-oh.
I'm sure somebody's interrupted. Just hold on for a minute.
That's all right. I have it on the small screen. I think the main thing is that we want to reduce the barriers like mandatory age for retirement and increase support for positive productive aging. And that means collaborating in peer learning intergenerational networks on action program priorities. I do want to show, and then teach service providers to be advocacy leaders who empower the self-advocacy of their clients. Next slide, please. This is a program called the Advocacy Leadership for Positive Aging program. I'm happy to send you the full curriculum. It's a 6-session program, and I use it with service providers, providers of services to older adults. This is a big part of the shift in attitude that's required. The aging service providers see themselves as providing services to meet the needs of these frail elderly people. We want them to shift their attitudes so they see themselves as advocates, not only for themselves, but for the self-management of their clients, so that they are teaching their clients to what are the resources out there. How could you do a better job of caring for yourself? So that they see a process for interviewing the client in order to be able to find out about the client's interests and strengths and to build on those strengths. So it's a whole process where we begin by assessing our individual strengths and needs, by setting some goals and finding resources to do what we want to do for ourselves, to try those out, evaluate, take action, and then to understand the changing expectations, the new opportunities and challenges that face older adults. And I want to comment on that, try it out. It's very important to know that any course that I would be teaching would be including experiential service kind or experiential projects. So that in this case, the Advocacy Leadership for Positive Aging program has 4, like bi-weekly, every 2 weeks, knowledge delivery. And then when they have a month or two to try that out, try out some new projects, new process in their work. And they come back and report on that and then talk about it with each other. One of the things that happens is that the aging service providers tend to form a community. Here in my town, for example, in Massachusetts, I got together all people from the public sector, private sector, nonprofit groups, all of whom provide services for older adults. By the time that this program is over, they were formed a community, their own community. They'd found out what other people were doing. And they can now do referrals. A pair of them has set up a new silver spokes policy because they think that they could be encouraging bicycle riding, etc. So this is the advocacy that I'm talking about. Next slide, please. So this is kind of a diagram that sums it all up. I'm saying that purposeful practice create public good for everyone, and that we need to have new norms and attitudes. And we also need, on that top left there, and we need on the right to have new opportunities, whether for employment or for caring, etc. And at the bottom, there are some basic enablers that are so essential beyond the range of opportunities that can be acquired by each of us. And that includes the transportation. It includes, the health care, includes the learning programs. Those enablers are basic, and it's up to us in city planning or community planning or as advocates with the government to make sure that they're provided. All of this takes collaboration across, looking at the bottom line there, across sectors, across occupations, across generations, across disciplines. And that the roots to make a difference is through practices, changing practices, doing research, changing policies. Next slide, please. So here we come with our questions. You want to take them one by one? Dr. Lango, you want to come on, or shall I just say who can see the hands and call on the people with their hands? Oh, good. Let's see. How do we want to conduct this discussion? Let's just go to the first question. What did I say that doesn't fit the situation in India? Or the flip side of that is, what did I say that you'd be interested in exploring in your work in India? So we can do it either way. And I need someone to be able to, who can see all of the screen, to see who has a hand up. I can't see that myself. Radha, can you see that? Oh, good. Raja, please, can you unmute yourself?
First of all, I would like to thank for this opportunity. It is nice to hear about the positive aging and other aspects. See, the first question, what did I say that does not fit the situation in India? There are so many things. First of all, I would like to bring to your attention that India is a country which is known for the multi-diversity nature of culture. Okay, that is the aspect where it makes a lot of a difference between us and countries like US and Australia. Number one. See, if I say that something that does not fit the situation, number one, it is in terms of the aspect of the administration of the quality of service. Number two, management of the quality of the service. Number three, the delivery of the the quality of care service. So here Indian context differs from other Western countries. So of course there are a lot of variations because of the developed nature and the developing nature and underdevelopment. That is different. But because of various other the factors which contribute so much, all the other psychosocial, economic, that has its own impact. A country like India, and the thing is, one is the majority population of the rural, majority population of the elderly, and among them illiterates and the feminization. All this contribute to.
Good.
That's all I want to say. Thank you.
That's a good line. Good. Who else wants to say that? That's an excellent comments, Raja.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Suman here. Can I share?
Yes, Michelle. What is your name?
SUMAN, Suman.
Yes, indeed, okay. Suman.
Yes. With regard to the first question, some of the commonalities that I see is, even here, 69% of elderly live in rural areas. Like you mentioned, that even in US, a lot of people elders live in rural areas. But the difference with regard to retirement age is, official retirement age depends on different state governments. We also have a federal structure. So the age of retirement ranges anywhere between 58 to 65 years in the formal sector.
What would happen if I were 68 and I needed to find some income? Would I be encouraged to earn it?
No, actually, there are very few people in the formal sector who are working compared to informal sector. Like if I have seen the rural elderly who are going to fields till they can work. The amount of work that they do may be lesser than what they were doing at an younger age, but they are still engaged in some amount of income generation or contributing to the family's production.
Mm-hmm. Right.
This is what we see here. So the concept of retirement does not come so much among the people who are working in the informal sectors.
So their income, is there an automatic pension then for everyone?
No, there is no automatic pension. Government gives some amount of pension from the Department of Social Welfare, which is given to very few people who are under the category of below poverty line people. And the pension given is quite meager. So they need to find resources, mobilize resources to enhance their living expenses. That is a fact here.
Right.
And third thing is, there are not many nursing homes. Elderly, most of them either live in the rural areas, live in their ancestral homes, and the children here also have moved out to cities. But the nursing home concept is not much caught up.
What's interesting is that in 46 countries now around the world, you actually have fewer people being born than it's under replacement rate.
Okay,
So
but here it is not the case so far.
Not the case, no, right. So that you still have replacement rate of births.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
People can still depend upon having some children to care
Yes.
for them.
Yeah, but the issues of elder abuse are also coming up with this increase in longevity.
Okay, great.
And abandonment of parents is one of the causes for concern among the logical social work people.
That's very interesting. Thank you very much, Suman. Others who might want to speak.
Yeah, I'm. Can I talk? I'm Dr. Jarida from the Department of Social Work, Bhakti University. Adding up, like here, the attitude of the people is different in India. Like as they grow older, maybe when they start their age of 45 or 50, they think that they have come to the end of the life. Maybe they say they don't give a space for them. They started, they don't want to keep themselves beautifully dressed, and they don't want to, they curtail so many comforts that they have to do it when they reach 45, 46, 47 and 50 and 55, because the people here, they think that retirement, the age of 58 or 60, that determines the age of the old people, and they are going to be financially dependent on the children. So the attitude of the people in India has to be slowly changed. Maybe the workshops, the webinars like this will sensitize the people. And as Dr. Suman was telling, compared to the urban areas, rural people are more productive in their old age than to the urban people. Very few, we can quote very few people who are very productive. Even after their retirement, they are going and contributing, sharing their knowledge, their experience that they have gained. But majority of them, they just sit at home, take care of the grandchildren, And no, they say that that is the work they have after the retirement. So this is my contribution.
Thank you, Dr. Charita. Just one question.
Yeah.
In the rural villages, are the families, the children available, or have they moved into the city?
Yeah, in most of the rural areas, because now migrations have started coming, people started coming to the suburbs of the city. But rural people, old people are there in the rural areas, but those who are not educated, young people who are not educated, who cannot come out of the rural area to the urban areas, they still stay there along with their parents.
Yeah. Right. Thank you. Is there help for them with housing when they come to the city?
They take these unauthorized shelters in the slums. That is how slums are being created in our cities. Our extensions it has become an extension in the cities, in the suburbs of the city.
Well, what I do hear from you, Dr. Charita, is that what might be valuable would be to do something of the kind that Moira and I have been doing through the Pass It On Network, which is we just basically organize through our liaisons who are already active in their community and who themselves tend to be older adults.
Yes.
They then get people together, whether it's through a lifelong learning program or whether it's through advocacy programs to change some rules. But that engagement of seniors through gerontology education, it seems might be.
It is not visibly done, that lifelong education does not take place visibly. Maybe when we go and ask the elders in the communities, they may share their experience. But this does not happen spontaneously. Maybe social workers, when we go to the community for our rural camp and for our community organization programs, when we collect the elderly people, they share their experience, but this is not transmitted to the children. They just consider them as insignificant people in the family. They do not know anything like that.
Yes, exactly. So that in other words, education for you people who are taking courses in gerontology that inspires, will help to inspire older people to see a life that's different for themselves from what they expected.
Of course, definitely.
Makes a big difference. I just have my own example, because at age 68, I was as ageist as they could come. The reason why I started this surveys was because I just wanted to hear what older adults would say for themselves and how we could meet their needs. But when I heard about how productive they were in caring for their grandchildren and caring for the sick and disabled and continuing in the workplace, I realized that I was in the wrong place, that I needed to change expectations for myself, but also we needed to work together to change it for others.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was an interesting presentation.
Good. Anyone else who wants to speak?
Hello.
Well, yes. Robin.
Hello. Good evening to everyone. Okay, let me share our practice here in the Philippines. So, in our country, people have different mindset instead, because before, the retirement period is ages between 60. Now, once you overcome 60, 61, you are forced to retire. And people here, they have different mindset because they're proposing a certain program where it intends that instead of 60, they will cut that. They will be having 55 years. Why? Because it is good for those government employees, because right after the retirement, they will receive pension. Unlike those who are not government employee, they will be retiring at the age of 55. And right after that, no companies will accept them. So that's the negative side. And for those in the government employees, so for the positive is according to them that they want to retire early so that they can enjoy their lives. So I don't know which is which, and that's all our I want to share our practices here.
I appreciate so much those comments. When I first started the Vital Aging Network, I went to the retirees who were the heads of the union, that included both government workers and regular workers, but they were the people who had negotiated the contracts. And I said, you know, wouldn't you like to change the rules to allow people to work longer? And of course they said, absolutely not, because we are working for our pension and we have a good pension and we were able to get it young and early, and we don't want any changes. So it was very interesting because it's a matter, again, of figuring out what the best route for that is. I was very fortunate because one of the guys who is the state president of the Federation of Labor was willing to be the MC for our statewide conference. And they do realize now that the state will not have enough money to pay the pensions for all of the people who are going to get it at age 55 and live to be 95. They don't have the money to cover it. So it means that for our own self-interest, if we want to get pensions throughout our lives, we really need to support longer work life, more contributions. In Japan, it's very interesting, I think, because they have so many, such a huge percentage of older adults, and they have a way below what they need as far as children and workers. So what to do about it? And it's very interesting to see what happens because they simply cannot afford to pay pensions as long as they have done. They still have maintained the pension age at age 60, but they allow you to work longer.
Yes.
Very interesting. Anyone else who would like to contribute? Shall we, Dr. Lango, shall we move to a different question? I think that these comments are very interesting. It looks as if there may be others who wish to speak. Anyone else who wishes to speak? No? Okay. So shall we go to another question?
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Aprahita.
Yeah.
Aprahita.
Yeah.
Fine.
Please. Hi, ma'am. Yeah. Hello to everyone as well. I'm a soft skills trainer, and though I believe I'm among the youngest one present over here, but still I wanted to understand aging so much. And my question is, in India, the retirement plan is quite different from that of other countries. In US, we have seen, because see, I haven't I haven't traveled to any other country, but I have talked to many of the foreigners as I'm in Varanasi, Banaras, which is a tourist place. And when I see people of elder age, like 70 plus, 80 plus, they just go ahead with their profession. They are happy with their profession. They are earning and they are working. But in India, the retirement plan is quite different. They all are just waiting to leave job and get the retirement at 65 and enjoy with the pension. And when, the youngsters motivate some people, elder people over here, that you can utilize this time in this and that. But some of them take it very positively, and some feel like that my child is not responsible enough and he wants me to work and earn and contribute. And, because of this, wrong belief system, and we get disturbed because we are in the era where we are facing so much of transitions, be it in the belief system, be it in the living style, or be it in the growing pattern as well. So I just wanted to understand that as per your perspective, ma'am, so far you have been explaining us your perspective, what should be the right retirement plan?
Well, I think that the flexibility for people is essential, and I think that there really should be no defined retirement age. In other words, that employers should not be allowed to say that unless they have a physical reason. In other words, let's say that I am a laborer and I need to be able to lift, or I'm a nurse, I have to be able to lift 50 pounds. If I can't do that, then I'm no longer able to be employed. But to simply have it be an arbitrary based on age, what we know as gerontologists is that the span of ability increases year by year between what you can find. So in other words, when you're babies, we know pretty much what they could do. But when we get to be 90-year-olds, we have 90-year-olds who are running marathons, as well as 90-year-olds who are dead because they, were ill when in their 50s. So it's just this huge, huge range, and we need to be sufficiently flexible. Particularly, it's beneficial for our government and for us. You will be able to be doing what you think of as being meaningful all your life. And if I need to have some money that goes along with that, that you'll might be able through your home, using your computer, for example, to get some money for it. Because the government, if people live so long, I see headlines from around the world every day. Actually, I get them twice a week. And those headlines too often show that countries are running out of money for their pensions because of the large volume of people who are aging out. Thank you very much, Apajita. Yes, others.
Right, this is Ilango from Bangalore, from the Department of Social Work. Yes. There are 2 or 3 points that I would like to bring, into the group. One is there is a clear divide between the rural elderly and then the urban elderly. So when we talk about gerontology in the Indian context, it's mainly to do with the urban population, because in the rural areas, when we look at it, it's about 70% of the Indian population still stay in the rural areas, and then their life situation is completely different from the urban one. The urban ones are much more neglected compared to the rural ones, because rural ones still can go back to the agricultural, activity. Whereas in the urban areas, it's completely a different scenario. If you look at Bangalore, we have seen in the last 10 years, we have seen almost like 200% increase in old age homes, right? So people don't want to keep the elderly at home, and just they don't want to do away with them. And then when we look at a permanent pension after old age, I mean after retirement, it's very minuscule in the entire population when we look at it. It's a larger population which is without the service, and then which require actually a lot of lot of attention that needs to come in from the private entity as well as from the government. I think that's where we stand, especially with the Indian context.
Thank you, Alango. Do I understand correctly? Just yes or no? Yes or no with this? I think that what you're saying is that actually the older adults in the rural areas may be better off. That it's maybe more likely for older adults in the cities who do not have families or for some reason, there are fewer options. Is that, I'm not quite sure if I understood that correctly. I do know that in my surveys in rural communities, that I felt that the productivity of older adults is higher than that of those in the cities. And by productivity, I was including work that includes paid work, or it includes volunteering, it includes caring for sick and disabled, caring for children. And it was because I think in these smaller communities, they did know each other. They were caring for the neighbors as well as for their own relatives. And that included, repairs for housing or transportation, transporting them. The person who had the grocery store might be in the late 80s because no one was going to close the only grocery store left in town. I think that they were being productive because they had to, but then they also, interestingly enough, 97% of them said that they were still in control of the life and healthy, not healthy, but happy, feeling good about themselves. That's the point. Feeling good about themselves. They were helping others. That's why. So that could go only to a point, though. At the point where the cohort was 65 or then will be 75, and they're going to be dying off, at some point there, it's not going to work in the rural communities to just take care of each other. It's very interesting to think about these opportunities. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? No? I don't hear anyone. Okay. What about the question of, okay. Is there the question of what you feel? I talked about education and I talked about advocacy. Tomorrow you're going to be hearing from a wonderful approach to self-care and caregiving, and I think that would be an excellent session. But right now, I think, what would you like to add? What would you like to say is needed as far as advocacy and change of policies? Advocacy for lifelong learning. Advocacy for what? What do you think is very important from your perspective as far as public policy in relationship to aging? Public policy in relationship to aging, where you live. What changes are needed? Anyone? Any ideas?
Dr. Rodley?
Yes, Professor.
I'm Professor Sundar Popley. I'm from Jamia University. And I worked on in Delhi, and now my one or two students.
And to set new, expectations. We're talking about changing expectations. But that plan for 2030 would be a good place to get that. I wanted to comment here. We have Margaret Young, I noticed, from where is it? In Canada, Vancouver in Canada. And she has been very helpful to the Pass It On Network in regard to the United Nations. Because the Pass It On Network is an accredited member of the UN's Working Group on Aging. And that's where we have developed a side event on lifelong learning and earning. But also, the UN is working on human rights for older adults, changing and expanding those rights. Now you have, for example, the CEDAW, the rights of women, which were approved, I believe, in 2012, and you have the rights of young people. But the UN does not have anything. It's on the rights of older adults. And it seems to me that the best way, Professor Ushvinder Popley.
Yes.
Dr. Popley.
This was something in line with like in India, we have child care leave, CCL, to take care of a child. Throughout our service, we can have 2 years with pay leave. Women are privileged to get this leave to take care of the child, either for their health reasons or for their exams or for any other kind of reason, and they can take leave in part and parcel whenever the child requires a mother, because the woman used to take leave and her salary was cut, and in continuity of service there was a problem. So on the same lines, I feel that even elderly are like children and they can get sick any day. They might need your help, they might get hospitalized, or they might get this kind of help which is required by the caregivers. So on the same lines, like there is a policy for giving leave to people who are taking care of children, I think there should be a policy where caregivers should also be given some kind of leave for to the caregivers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're in agreement about that. Margaret, do you have any comments about that? Oh, Ghazala.
Yeah. Good evening, ma'am. I'm Ghazala, and I worked in the government and was fortunate enough to work on the senior citizens. We were the nodal agency in the country working on senior citizens. Our problem here, ma'am, is that we are too many. Senior citizens in 2011 constituted about 8.6% of the population. So what we are talking in India is a large number, which obviously it cannot be compared to the US. So, and our population and our country, it is in a development stage. There's a lot of poverty. There's a lot of rural-urban divide, as other speakers have told you. So the challenge is too severe. It is a massive challenge, and the rate of population aging in our country, the population is also increasing, but at the same time, the elderly population is also increasing. And like all other speakers have told you, there are these problems of migration, breakup of a joint family system. Earlier, we used to all live together with grandparents. Now we find that, because of job, globalization, everybody's moving. So these issues have come up. Now, what we want, the government is already doing. You talked about the policy. I think a policy document has come to Dr. Gangadhar and others to give their comments. But now what we need in this country is to talk of senior citizens, is to mainstream them in the developmental agenda of the country. Because the senior citizens cannot, it's a huge this thing. We cannot give pensions to everybody. So we'll have to do some kind of planning from beginning in the unorganized sector. The organized sector is very well taken care of. As others have told you, we have pensions and we have pensions for below poverty line, but those are very meager amounts. So we need to now weave the senior citizens agenda into the developmental agenda of the country, and then work towards empowering the future generation, so that when the unorganized sector, whenever they retire, they have a little corpus or they have a pension plan for themselves. So that kind of financial security has to be given. Without financial security, senior citizens are always at a loose end. And that is why we keep talking of skilling and upskilling. In this country, we have such a young population that to bring senior citizens in the job market, you can imagine what will happen. We have young aspirants who are seeking jobs, and if you bring senior citizens there as so while it is good to skill them, to use them, or to kind of support them and to make them feel worthwhile and good about themselves and use them in some areas, but like others have told you, there is also this reality where senior citizens are working like ordinary laborers. The ones in the rural area are never retiring because they keep working till they have energy. So we have to have a large package, and I think the government has already come out with a senior citizens plan, and it's a long kind of a plan in which all of them are also examining. It's a big scheme, and if that takes off, I'm sure a lot of effort, good will come out of it. So the government is already in the process of doing a lot of things, but our sheer numbers and our problems are not so simple, And like others have also told you, all that adds up, But no, we don't have enough nursing homes. At the same time, we don't want people to go to nursing homes. We want them to age in place. This whole concept of staying at home, aging with the family, so that it puts less pressure on the senior citizens. So all those factors, ma'am, will have to be taken into account when we talk of policies and programs for senior citizens. And like Professor Ilango told you, we have already linked it up with the SDGs, and we are reporting to the UN on what we are going to do. So all these policies, there are a lot of policies and programs for the senior citizens, but unfortunately, we are a huge number, and so it will take some time to get everybody on and try and make the difference to the lowest common denominator. Thank you.
Oh, Ghazala, that was a marvelous statement, and you could write that down and we could publish it. It's it's remarkable. Because one of the interesting things there, is that there is you could say, well, it's really sad in Japan because they have so many old people and they don't have enough young people to fill the jobs. Well, there is some benefit to it in a way, because older people then are encouraged to do whatever they can do and to be caregivers and to remain in the workforce, et cetera, et cetera. Where you have the birth rate, which is still remaining high as it is in India, then you don't have, it's like there's competition for available jobs. So it does, that there would not be the openings. But simply the issue of scale is so important. I do think that where are you located, Ghazala? Are you still working with the government?
No, ma'am. I'm superannuated and retired.
It's you see, that's that Moira. Maybe we have a candidate here for the Pass It On Network, because it would be wonderful to hear the statement that you just made, and others here, I think, would be in agreement with the words that you expressed. Thank you. Anyone else now?
Hello.
Ma'am.
Hello.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. My name is Manoj. Yes.
Manoj.
I would like to ask two questions. The first thing, I think somewhere in your presentation, this vocabulary productive, it's repeatedly getting echoed. Can we think beyond market language?
Say the word again, the words again that bother you. What are the words?
Something like being productive, productive aging. We have to make sure that these people are going to be a part of market force. All these vocabularies are part and parcel of a market language. In a way, we are party to this. There is no alternative to market. I think, can we think of a different frame in which we can articulate how aging is experienced?
Yes, exactly. I'm so glad that you raised that point. We have done surveys with older adults, how they want, what words they want to be, what words they like to be used for them. The word senior, for example, a lot of people don't want. They don't want they hate the word elderly. The word elder, that's pretty much okay. Thinking about vital aging, they like that very much. And that's why I labeled my first network the Vital Aging Network, because the word vital was very attractive to them. As you know, the word active aging is used throughout the world, it seems. It's used by the UN and also particularly in Europe, the year of active aging. I'm not sure about that because it seems to me that people who are in wheelchairs can be, should be included here. The question is, what kind of active are we talking about? But I think that that's a wonderful challenge. And it would be interesting, I think, for the gerontology program to try out a whole lot of different words with older adults of different ages, because we are multi. How many generations are there of the word old? I think of it as being basically 3 generations. In the U.S., it's we call it the greatest generation, the World War II generation, the people who are now in their 90s and fading quickly. You have then the in-betweeners. That's my generation, people born between 1929 and 1943, 45. And then we have those who are younger, the boomer generation, which is the big ones, the ones from after World War II up to 1965. So we have at least 3 generations there of old. And I think that there are different words that are appealing to different age groups, but try it out. I'd be happy to hear more about any survey that we could be doing in India of words that people are attracted to. I know that the Encore people, Encore.org, did a lot of studying before they used the word encore.
That's a very interesting point. Yeah. That's
So,
very interesting point, Jan. And in this connection, I would like to say that there is a. May I come in, Jan?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a wonderful discussion on the terminologies which we are using, and of course I do understand the concern expressed by the participant who asked that question, whether we should use the term productive aging,
right?
Which is more of a terminology in the market economy.
Sounds good to me.
But as you rightly said, there are being tried, and one of the recent concepts which I came across, and it's being promoted in India by a group of people, and one Professor Srinivasa Murthy, a very senior professor of psychiatry, talks a lot about successful aging. That's the concept which Professor Srinivasa Murthy and many others who are like-minded, like him, they keep propagating that kind of a concept. So it's of course, as you said, there are a variety of terminologies like healthy aging, productive aging, positive aging, active aging, and I think this is also really an area which requires a lot of deliberations and a lot of experiments. I think with different terminology. And
right.
Yeah.
The term successful aging, I don't care for that because, I'm a failure at aging. That's ridiculous, and I think it's a are you or are you not successful? It bothers me, but there are so many different possibilities. So we're at 9:57, and I think that it's time.
I think that depends on how we define success. Would anyone else like to make a comment?
Hello, ma'am.
That was a wonderful session, Jan.
Hello. May I join?
I think we are almost.
Ma'am, I just wanted to thank you for answering to my question. I lost connection, so I could not thank you. So this is just to say a heartfelt thanks to you, ma'am. It was a wonderful session. I learned a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Go ahead, ma'am. So thank you very much, Dr. Jan Hagley, for that wonderful presentation and for answering all the questions raised by the participants. And it was a wonderful discussion, and I was so delighted to see Mrs. Ghazala Minai, who contributed very significantly to the policy making in India, and Dr. Gangadharan has been associated with her for a very long time. And Madam Ghazala Minai has been a part of our BDU Heritage Center for Gerontology right from the day we launched it. And she has been guiding us, she has been supporting us, and she's been giving us her wise counsel. So that was a wonderful thing.
Thank you. I'll see you tomorrow. Ilongo, I'll see you tomorrow. I'll be in the audience tomorrow.
Request
I'll be in the audience tomorrow.
Oh, thank you, Jan. Just a couple of more minutes. I request Dr. Gangadharan to kindly offer your concluding remarks and. Please note everyone.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Ilongo. Now, let me tell you, I think I really thank you so much for making it so wonderful. And I think you prove at this age what it means, be young.
Dr. Gangadharan,
I think I don't want to say anything more than that. You have just been wonderful. I think I don't want to talk anything more. We look forward to a more interaction tomorrow. Thanks a lot once again, Dr. Ilongo and team. And John Ively and team. Thanks you once again. Take care.
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Ilongo. Thanks.
They have a session tomorrow evening. I mean, that's evening for us. Yeah. And Dr. Moira Allen and Rajiv Mehta would be the speakers for tomorrow's session. So please join the session about 15 minutes before the scheduled time. That is, if you could join by say 5:45 p.m. Indian Standard Time, that'd be wonderful. And many participants have you've been asking us for the feedback link. Let me just inform you that the feedback link will be shared with you all tomorrow after the end of the second session. So at the end of the session tomorrow, the feedback link will start working and remain active for about 30 minutes. And all of you, those who are interested in, those who are desirous of getting a certificate, please do fill in the feedback forms and submit. And I thank all of you for participating in this webinar session today. My thanks are due to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, our Registrar of Bharathidasan University, our Head of the Department, Dr. Mangaleshwaran, all my faculty colleagues in the Department of Social Work, and my special thanks to Dr. Jan Hagley for the wonderful presentation. I'm sorry there was an interruption in the formal introduction which I had to make for about Dr. Jan Hagley. As you all know, due to some technical problem, there was a failure in my internet connection, so I could not be with you all. I lost a little bit of little part of the session, so I do apologies for that. And I hope you all enjoyed today's session. The feedback for today's session through the chat box has been very encouraging, and I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow in the evening, tomorrow at